everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 21 of Orb on the Movements of the Earth. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, my throat is a little scratchy today, so I've got a cup of hot tea brewing here that's steeping as we speak. But my throat is a little bit scratchy, so we're gonna do our best getting through this, though. I think it'll be all right. So I do have a lot of comments about episodes 18 and 19 before we start this episode, so we might as well just dive into that. But last episode was so freaking bittersweet. I wanted Yolanta and Novak interaction, and I got it, but not in the way I signed up for it, show. I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter at all. You can't imagine that, right? So, as far as the comments go, Tasto3204 for episode 18 says, I love how the scene of Schmidt bathing in the sunrise has been unchanged in all versions of the opening. Even way before he was introduced. You could say he was always there just for it. I had not taken into account, he has been there the whole time. I think I mentioned that in the OP, but until I read this comment, it really did dawn on me, wow, he has been there the whole time, and we've been just waiting for his character to appear. So that's really cool. We still have several episodes left of this series. We still have 5 episodes left. We may, as far as time changes go in this series could hop ahead 10 years, from now, and I won't be surprised. I'll just be like, wow, really, show? And so, if that happens, I still hope that Schmidt stays in the opening. But anyway, I've got a couple comments for episode 19 that I want to talk about before we dive into this. Jav Gamer for episode 19 says, I love the symbolism of Novak still having the necklace and continuing to stab at it. Not only does it show how he's totally refused to move on from Raffle, if he truly felt nothing about it, why wouldn't he throw it away or burn it? Bingo. And he's continued to stab it over and over for 25 years, and yet hasn't been able to destroy it. The necklace preserves, despite the attempts to kill it. Like Raffle says, your enemy is a resilient one. Yeah, I think that speaks a lot for Novak, that he's not been able to put the necklace aside. Even when he goes to face Yolanta last episode, like, he didn't know it was Yolanta. He just knew she was tied to the Reformation and tied to the Resistance. So the Heretic Reformation or Resistance group. So, he didn't even destroy it then. It's like, I want to see, I'm very curious to see how Novak's story ends in all of this, because I feel like there's still a little bit left of a part for him to play, but we'll see how it goes. Geen for episode 19 says, some Polish context to the typeface. Y'all know I love some context. For Poland, the typeface was really exclusive and important for the longest time because it got to Poland the latest out of all the European countries. So the imported books from other countries were already created with it, but there was no technology for it in Poland until much later than other countries. Poor Poland! Poor Poland! Give Poland some access to literacy, please! So the fact they even got the typeface in the first place was insanely impressive. I feel like that, get a little, still hot. I feel like that in itself is pretty telling, and I feel like the show, I mean, if you're a historian or if you're from Poland or if you know your Polish history, then that all context would be there. I wish the show had made a little bit more of a bigger deal of that, because that's pretty insane that they're one of the last countries to have gotten it. But to be fair to the show, at the time, in hindsight, in the time that the events were taking place with our characters, they may not have known that they were the last to get it. They're just like, okay, we've got it, now we're good. So you really can't expect them to make such a big deal about it. It's just interesting that later on historians would note, yeah, that was kind of a big deal actually, in hindsight. So that's really cool to bring up. I'm glad you did that, Geen. Thank you. I always love context, like historical context from people that are from that country or know about it. Love that. And then finally, Deep Raj. Deep Raj coming in with the deep comments. Put this for episode 19. Orb shows us that science's basic assumptions are not inherently neutral. They become tools shaped by the convictions of those who use them. Observation and reason can illuminate truth, but in the wrong hands, the same foundations can be weaponized to enforce power or suppress dissent. The science remains unchanged, only the intent behind it shifts. Such good words to say. This functions as a metaphor for human belief more broadly. Our assumptions help us navigate the world, but when hardened into certainty, they can lead equally to progress or destruction. Orb suggests that good and evil are not born from knowledge itself, but how firmly and uncritically we cling to it. And I think that's a really good description, because Yolenta was kind of self-aware that she was clinging to this one truth and hardened by it, and was kind of hoping that Draka would remain more open-minded and willing to change, because if you get cemented into something, it can kind of, rot you from within. And Yolenta was starting to feel that way. And I think it was a really good indication last episode where she kept using the tool that Raffle had used, but she's like, I can't tell the time, so I'm just shooting at the wind here, and maybe I should go learn about this stuff, but I'm too hardened by my beliefs and I'm not changing. And it was just a really good metaphor in episode 20. And then Deep Raj says, Raffle represents conviction in its purest form, driven by curiosity rather than control. Had he lived, it's possible he might have followed Yolenta's path, not out of betrayal, but because sustained conviction under pressure often mutates into compromise. Orb ultimately warns that without self-examination, even truth-seeking beliefs can converge towards the same fate. Yeah, Yolenta becoming a cautionary tale in this is so interesting to me. I wish we had more time with her character and that, but also this series is about how the world keeps moving. Time waits for no one. So it's kind of this bittersweet reminder that, yeah, you don't get to stop and smell the roses all the time. The world will keep going. But I do love the idea of Raffle representing curiosity rather than control. He just wanted to know what there was out there and what truths existed without trying to have any like political or ulterior agendas. And I love that so much. So anyway, we're not going to waste any more time. I've talked enough, but thank you all so much for your comments and kind words. I really, really, really appreciate it. With that being said, we are going to get started here and go into episode 21. I can't believe we only have 5 episodes left. That's so weird. It's like almost a month of Orb left to go. Anyway, we're going to start Orb on the Movements of the Earth, episode 21. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's do it to it. Had to go restock tea. Because we were going to need it for Whiteboard Coon, I have a feeling. Oh my gosh. This show does bittersweet and like shocking plot twists in the best way. Y'all go and clock it. Y'all go back to episode 20 and clock it. I was suspicious of Free last episode. I was like, I don't know. I was, to be fair, I was suspicious of Bolko in this as well, because he seemed kind of like, I don't know. But I was suspicious of Free last episode. I couldn't put my finger on it as to why, but we find out this episode, yeah, Free was not to be trusted. And now, going back to this episode, when we start, him moving the typeface, I'm like, oh, Free did that on purpose to ruin the typeface, the blocks. He did that intentionally. I'm like, how dare he? Like, I just feel like I really like Schmidt's character. And I think Schmidt making the decision to help Draka escape and put his life on the line, I'm like, I feel like Schmidt has been wooed by Draka, and it's kind of amazing to witness. He will never admit it, of course. Schmidt is like Bodini in the sense that he won't admit that he's been wooed by this country folk, person of interest, but he has been. He has been wooed. And I think that she's wooed him like on a philosophical level, which is the most flirtatious and sexy kind of wooing, right? Look, I'm a shipper. Let me ship Draka and Schmidt. Let me ship them. I know some people don't. It's fine. Let me have my moment here. But yeah. So this whole confrontation went surprisingly well with the guys, and honestly, like, because he gave the authorization, Leibowitz, whatever, didn't come back to there. It was just Free and Schmidt, right? And they covered their tracks and everything really well. I think that as they were going back, like, if you notice, Free didn't do anything to really stop the situation. He was just kind of staying there and letting it take place. Also, I had to pour another glass of tea because I figured we were going to need it for this. This needs to cool off. But Draka's the one that she gave the cloth to keep them from looking back behind the wagon, which literally saved them. Right. And I think we need to talk about just Draka and Schmidt on here. So I want to talk about Draka here, Schmidt here. I maintain that kid, that the guy pointing at the stars is either a resurrected, reincarnated Aksha, or he's Schmidt and Draka's love child. We'll see which holds true. Who knows? Maybe he's not. I'm probably wrong, but I can dream. So Draka's whole thing was her they both had their conviction, right? The idea of her conviction is to get money, which I think that grabs Schmidt's attention right off the bat. The fact that she offered her clothing to the guard, because even though it was old and everything, it's still a symbol of her people. It's still a symbol of, it has sentimental value, I'm sure Schmidt assumes, but also it's something she can trade for money. Her just giving away something for a cause is pretty substantial for somebody whose whole thing is about making money in capitalism. Giving the clothing off your back, literally, to a guard to save someone that you don't even fully believe in, that's kind of unheard of for somebody that's so driven by this capitalism. So it's like, Schmidt's kind of like, well, that was an interesting thing you just did. So Schmidt's conviction, his conviction itself is to overthrow the orthodoxy. Because that literally, and the thing about it is, both of them are coming, I know that they both have reasons that go beyond this, so we've talked about that in previous discussions, I know that, but there is one thing that kind of aligns both of them together in their convictions, and it's the idea that in their past, they've seen how the influence of what they're both seeking has caused personal tragedy. Like, both of them have lost family. Draka lost her father because of that need for money. And that need for money caused her father to pillage and pilfer and end up getting killed. And then with Schmidt, we find out, we get confirmation it is him that's the kid, but we get confirmation that the orthodoxy itself and the need to overthrow it, or to rely upon, the need to overthrow that orthodoxy, caused him to lose his mom and his dad. So both of them, the influence of money and the orthodoxy led to them both suffering this personal tragedy of losing people close to them. And then what came from it were two different circumstances, where Draka believed that money, she's like, well, my dad died because he didn't have money. So if I have money, that will allow me to have survival. And then Schmidt comes at it from a different way. He's like, the orthodoxy is causing this closure of, open-mindedness and evolution, and, evolution and God together is kind of how he's viewing it. So if we just get rid of it, he wants to get rid of the thing that caused him trauma. She wants to keep the thing that caused her trauma, thinking that it won't affect her the same way it did her dad. So they come about it different ways, but they are connected in similar respects. Right? But they end up getting past the guards, which I kept expecting the guards to come by, and that didn't happen. It does not help my ship fueling that Schmidt watches Draka like a damn hawk. He is constantly like looking over his shoulder at her and eyeing her. And Schmidt the whole time is like, I don't have emotions. I'm Spock. I'm Data. I don't have any emotions. I'm fine. I'm like, but you do. You do, though, and you like her. And what I like about it is he doesn't necessarily like her in like a romantic or sexual way. He is attracted to her because she challenges him in such an open-minded and kind of like liberated way. And he's like, what do I do with this? And I stand by my conviction in the ED. If they were both men, I would still ship them. If they were both women, I would still ship them. If they're man and woman, I would still ship them. So the gender has nothing to do with my shipping ability. It's literally the chemistry between them and these glances he keeps giving her and this looks he keeps giving her. Like, when somebody's staring at you like that for a while, they either want to hurt you or they want to be closer to you. Typically. So because of his curiosity, right? And that kind of goes back to Raffles' whole thing about curiosity rather than control. That's something too. Schmidt doesn't want to change her mind. He doesn't want to control Draka or change her mind or convince her. He is just curious about her and what she thinks about things. And that's interesting in itself, right? So he says that they saved her back there. and that she saved them back there. And she's like, she's like, well, I have a stake in this as well. So I'm kind of tied to this printing press too. But I do like the fact that she has lost her old cloak and gained Yolenda's. That was a nice touch. And then convictions come with a price, right? And he says, yes. So both of them touch on this fact that convictions come with a price. And that price, we are talking about it this episode. For lots of people, convictions come with a price. They both agree with that. And Draka is sitting there thinking about Yolenda's words where she says that conviction can become a curse. It literally can lead to your downfall, right? Because we have Yolenta referring to her being like, it can become a curse if you are if you're unwavering in this conviction, it will become a curse. And we've seen that throughout this episode. And so Draka decides to make it her new goal that she is going to keep wandering. Keep wandering and have an open mind to solutions. If only more people could do that. If only more people could do that. I feel like we should be inspired by Draka in this episode and what she chooses to do. And then Schmidt kind of following suit because, yeah, ideas are infectious. She's like, keep wandering. I love that contrast of Yolenta in the light saying keep wandering and her face is like this profile. And then you turn to Draka whose face is like this profile and it's in the darkness. Just the symbolism, y'all. The symbolism! So she puts on Yolenta's hood and says, I'm going to honor her memory. I'm going to take in her heart. She says, if we fail now, then Yolenta's inspiration will die as well. And Schmidt's like, inspiration? What are these? He's like, you would all probably toss it aside as unnecessary sympathy. I love that Schmidt just eyes her and he's like, tell me more. I want to learn more from you. Tell me what you think about this. I'm so fascinated. Like, just shut up. Like, it's their flirting. But she talks about this inspiration. And she's like, I know that you all view it as sympathy and emotions. And she's like, you don't view it as something that we should have in this. But she's like, there does have to be, she's like, I'll preserve this inspiration. And she's like, as I listen to your plans, the future I imagine that you'll reach may contain her goals, but not her memories. I love this idea. She's like, she talks about Schmidt and says, you all know her goal and her mission. She's like, but I know what her heart and inspirations were, and they're just as important. So I like the idea that she says that, having humanity, she's kind of pointing to the fact that having humanity in all of this is not a bad thing. Schmidt views having humanity as a bad thing. He's like, humans are shit, and if we have them involved, it's just going to turn bad. And to Schmidt's credit, he's not wrong. Usually human interaction does not lead to good things happening. People are just oftentimes, more often than not, they are bad. And Draka kind of is viewing it as, oddly enough, a more optimistic way, which is like, for Draka to be doing this is crazy. But she's like, no, we have to have some humanity. If we don't have humanity, then everything will eventually fall apart. Because humanity can lead. I mean, if you think back on this series, true, humans' involvement has caused all the bad things to happen. However, you could look at, if Hubert had looked at Raffle from a non-emotional standpoint, would he have ever taken Raffle in? Probably not, which would have, then the story would have been this long, right? Probably wouldn't have happened. If Bodini had been emotionless, as Schmidt is, there was a lot of Bodini and Schmidt comparisons in this episode, and I was like, okay, because if Bodini had kept to his convictions from the first episode, that's something that's important too. You have Bodini over here, who at the very beginning of the series, of his episodes, was like, oh, I'm going to turn in Yolenta if anything goes south, because I'm going to say she's a witch, get her burned, and that'll save us. He's like, I'm not going to listen to Aksha's story because I don't find it of value. I'm not going to involve the beggars and all this. And he ended up doing all those things because his mind changed. And Bodini was trying to keep emotions out of it and keeping humanity's influence out of it, being like, well, I'm the chosen one. I am the one above heaven and earth and all this. I am the enlightened one. I'll be the one to get credit. And then by the end of his story, he realized, no, I kind of need to involve these people because they're kind of important and their inspiration matters. If he didn't take Aksha's inspiration into account, then he wouldn't have gotten the beggar's help to create the very manuscript that Father Grabowski did that led us to this where we are now. So I feel like there's a really cool lesson here of Schmidt kind of learning what Bodini learned, that yes, human involvement maybe 7 times out of 10 leads to something bad happening in the world, if you're going to view it from a pessimistic standpoint. But those other 3 times are necessary, and we can't not include them or overlook them, or we won't evolve as a species or as a people. And the earth keeps moving. So yeah, I love this conversation. And Schmidt just, if you inherited her plans, I'm going to inherit her heart. I don't know. I just like the heart, the mind and the heart. I hope that I just want Schmidt and Yolanda. I want Schmidt and Draka to escape together and go off and have a kid. I want them to be together. They don't have to have a kid. That kid doesn't have to be theirs, but I want them to escape together. And I don't think I'm going to get what I want. I don't think I'm going to get what I want, but I want it so bad. I don't think I'm going to get it. Come on, show. Come on, show. You didn't give me Yolanta and Novak meeting properly. So give me this. If that kid turns out to be like Draka and Antony's, I'm going to if that's what ends up happening, it probably will be because this is a medieval story. But I don't want that. We'll see. She's like, I don't know, but maybe it's because someone I met has died. And I promised to send a letter for her. Yeah, so we have the letter to worry about. Like, Draka still has the letter, which she does not bring up, cleverly so. She does not bring up to the rest of Schmidt's men, but she needs to mail the letter. We'll see how that goes. And she's like, I have to send something for her. And there we go. So we get outside in the sunshine. And I thought Schmidt was going to do his little routine, but instead he meets Bolko and the others. Want to say, the Heretic Liberation Front should just be renamed the Eccentric Hair Liberation Front, because we got a mohawk, we got a bowl cut, we have lots of like 70s inspired hairstyles, lots of facial hair movements. We got a boy band member in the back. Like, everybody's here. It's really interesting. So yeah, all their hairs are crazy. We thought you must be dead. And he's like, well, not yet. So I like that Draka tries to explain who she is, and Schmidt says she's a collaborator. Like, she's a colleague. Like, he includes her into, again, Schmidt, our feminist icon, is including her in the conversation and not excluding her. Because so far, everybody around us, which what Draka's like, what, 18? She's 17 or 18? I don't think she's a kid. But everybody keeps referring to her as a kid, I think because she's petite. And so everybody keeps calling her a kid and stuff. And Schmidt treats her like an adult, which is what she kind of is, right? For all intents and purposes. So go off, Schmidt. And she's like, I'm Draka. And so then I do like Bolko's what? Like, I like his, like, what is going on? That part was really funny. And Schmidt just says it like it's no big deal. He's like, yes, we can trust her. At the moment, we have no choice. I like the way that this is framed in the episode, because you have Schmidt, Frey, Liba, and Draka on the road. And there's like the road going different pathways. So there's some symbolism there. But then you have the other heretic members in the grass. There is a fence clearly dividing them, but the fence gate is open. So like they're not closed off to the idea of inviting them in. And there's just like the symbolism of these two separation of these groups, but they're, have the potential to come together. It's interesting. Also, I like the little animation detail. If you can see the tracks where the carriage has gone inside where the house is to drop off the printing press. Just little tiny animation details like that are really, really good. So yeah, the printing press, man. This is literally what changes the world. This technology changes the world. And then Schmidt's like, we're going to make this organization a more open place. We're going to expand the horizon for future generations. So his idea is that we are going to make this world a more open place. I feel like that statement in itself influences a lot of Schmidt's decisions in this episode, being like, if that's your conviction and that's your goal, which Schmidt's convictions are a little bit more niche than just the overall organizations. But if they're really doing this for the organization, being open-minded and open to ideas comes into a big part in the latter part of this episode. So good for him for sticking to it. And how do we do that? I just love Schmidt playing with his mustache. It's cute. I really like Schmidt. I feel like he's going to die. They're all going to die, but I feel like he's going to go down maybe in a blaze of glory. So I feel kind of, I'm like, the only thing I can think of is the OP shows him and Draka riding away on horses. So maybe, and then they come together in the OP. Maybe, I don't know. But I feel like it's a possibility. I want them to escape together. I want them to be together. I really like Draka and I really like Schmidt. But yeah, Schmidt's just so darn likable. I don't know. There's just something about the charisma his character oozes. He's like, we strengthen our convictions and visualize our thoughts. And we'll carry this moment far away to some distant future. I mean, this is going to change everything. Just the printing press. We know it can be, how it can be done. And so we have the power to dissolve the existing order and social classes. The thing that's crazy about all this, that's kind of inspiring, is regardless, because this whole episode, I was worried about, well, are they going to be able to, what if the printing press is destroyed? What if the printing press is destroyed? What do we do? And the thing about it is, it's kind of too late. That, the printing press, even if this version is destroyed, the printing press already exists. In other countries, it already exists, maybe in Poland, somewhere else. If you destroy this one, then the idea is already out there. You cannot kill an idea. The idea is already out there. Someone will create it. So, and that's the idea that you can't kill an idea is both, it's a double-edged sword where you could view it the nihilistic, pessimistic way of saying, like, well, somebody's going to do bad. They're always, the idea is always out there. But it also goes in reverse where the printing press will be able to be used by people. So the goodness of that is always on the table. It always will be possible. You can't snuff that out, right? Because that's just the human spirit in itself. So when he's talking about dissolving the social order and classes and that they're going to make it happen, even if they can't make it happen, they are part of the process of getting it eventually done. Even if they're not the ones to do it, like Bodini said, even if he's not the one to do it, someone is eventually going to take the reins, right? And then we get the intro. Okay, so the episode calls The Times Are Changing. I like that this episode referred not only to what Schmidt was talking about before the OP, but also that Schmidt and Draka are changing as people, and that's a good thing. Like, being stagnant is not good. That does not breed evolution or things in good ways. So, anyway, the printing press, I like that, yeah, here we go. Free is the one that gives them the typeface. And of course the letterpress casings are damaged. Well, who is surprised? So the title of the book, roll credits, is called On the Movements of the Earth. I love the idea that Draka is like, make Yolenta the author. I was like, yes. All I need at this point, the moment they said that, I was like, all I need is for Novak to get a copy of the book. I need Novak to get a copy of the book, and I need for Yolenta's name to be on it. The implication that Yolenta wanted to be the author of a treatise, she wanted to be the author, but the thing of it is she never proposed her being the author. She never proposed it. It's like Raffle didn't, Bodini and Aksha didn't, she didn't, they just passed on the manuscript without wanting to take credit for it. But Draka is like, no, we're going to give credit where credit's due. And the idea that that's going to reach Novak, possibly. My question is, if Antony gets a hold of it, what will Antony do? Will Antony try to change the name, or will it go through? I don't know. I'm curious to know. I think that Draka's going to try to go talk to Antony. I think, because Antony wanted to speak with her. So I'm curious what that's going to involve, but I don't know. So they put her on the cover. So, knowing that the letters are made out of lead, and the money that she has is made out of lead, makes me feel a little bit sad at this point because I don't know if you know a lot about lead. Lead is poisonous, highly. Mm-hmm. Lead is highly toxic and will also make you kind of go crazy. I don't know if you all watch Caitlin Dowdery. She is Ask a Mortician on YouTube. I've read one of her books. She's amazing. She's a mortician and she writes about death. She writes about tragic events that have happened in history and about like the logistics of the dead and everything. If you're having an existential crisis, go seek her out. Her stuff has oddly made me feel very calm and helped me get through crises because it's kind of like this show where it's like, it's going to eventually happen. So here's what we know and what we can prepare for. But it's also kind of interesting to just learn about the dead. There's just something, I feel like people treat death as taboo and she kind of like celebrates it and her content welcomes it and it's oddly endearing. But she had a special where she was talking about an expedition that went through northern Canada and they were trying to get like from one side of the northern hemisphere to the other, of North America to the other. And the ship got lodged in an ice flow and was stuck there. And there's a lot more details to it. If you look her videos up, you'll find the ship, you'll be able to tell it's stuck in ice. Anyway, the point was that the people aboard, all they had were lots of canned food, which were lead cans at the time, not tin, but lead. And consuming it and having all that exposure to lead over time made the crew members sick and also kind of have like a lot of mental degradation. And so it kind of makes me wonder, like, if people had all this money and it was all this lead over time, if that, like, affected people. Also, they're poisoning themselves, which makes me feel sad for them. History, man. History. But I think this is huge for Draka to let go of her conviction. Her conviction is the money. For her to let go of her money, for them to make the typeface. And she's getting no profit from it. So for her to let go of capitalism, her conviction, in order to advance knowledge and advance the world is so huge. And Schmidt is the one that takes notice. Like, Schmidt looks at the money and Schmidt's like, that's your conviction. You've told me that. That's what you stand for. And he's kind of blown away by the fact that she would offer that. He's like, well, yes, but... And she says, it's fine. I'd rather see the printing start. And there were several times in this episode where Schmidt did like the blink meme where he was like, because Schmidt just because Schmidt is so used to humans making the selfish bad decision. Schmidt has conditioned himself that that's the default. That's what people will go to. When people are in a pinch, they will make the selfish decisions. And we kind of do see that come into play with Free and with the group when they're debating on what to do. You see that happen. And so Schmidt is not surprised by humans being selfish, but when people are being selfless and letting go of their convictions, and he knows Draka is strongly held to her convictions, so that's why he's kind of thrown off. He's like, but you feel really strongly about this. And she's like, but this is more important. I think that like completely rocks his world, that he's like, okay. She's like, this is more important. So they melt it down, they make the letters, and Free at this point is like, well, shit, that ruins everything. And they make the typeface by Yolenta. Widawuka is what it says there for her name. That I like that subtitles just said published by Yolenta. We're not going to question it. But he's like, we don't want to raise suspicion. We're going to go into town and get resources. He's like, what does he say there? He's like, okay, bring paper. Yep, we'll print as much as we can. You three find if there's a way to get lead in town, but don't raise suspicion. Well, Free raises suspicion and tells everybody. Damn. Also, I like that the coins under the intermission card, there's one heads and one tail. So yeah, again, it should be considered... At this point in the story and the series, it should be considered instantly suspicious if you are in a barn with holes in it. Because the light pouring through the holes should be an indication that shit's about to go down. It just is. It just should be an indication that shit's about to go down. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? So they have boxes and boxes of the manuscript. They have boxes of it. They're like ready to go. And then Free comes in and he says, we should be able to transport them in a few days, right? And he's like, yeah. So all these manuscripts are in this box. Says, I hate that they spent all this time making all these manuscripts and they're going to probably get like one out. Like, mother trucker. We spent all this work and they're going to get like maybe one manuscript out. Damn it. Damn it. If that. She may go to Antony. If she goes to Antony, she may go and be like, I'm the only one that has the knowledge. You could kill me or we can make profit out of it. Because here's the thing. I don't know. Antony, here's my thoughts on Antony. Antony's such a bitch. But I feel like Antony is only the head of the orthodoxy because, one, it gives him power and control, which he wants. Two, he had the opportunity to take that power and control because he was the bishop's son. And three, because it's for his self-preservation. Do I think Antony is truly committed to the church? Hell no. Absolutely not. He wasn't truly committed back when Novak and them were doing the Inquisition, and he said so just as much. So I think if Draka goes to him, would Antony turn on the church for his own self-gain? Possibly. I don't know. I'm going to be curious about that. I don't exactly know what we're going to do with Antony in the rest of this series. The technology is impressive. Once it starts, it's fast. Yeah, that's the thing about technology, especially efficient technology. Once it gets stuff going, it's not hard to like reproduce and replicate. That's why, like, even though they spent all this time making these manuscripts, and I'm like, damn it, y'all are going to end up with not a lot of things left over that you can use. I'm like, at least it's fast, so there's a chance that it's the production of it's going to happen one way or another. We'll have more options in the future. And when Free said in the future, I'm like, oh, bitch, you're going to betray them, aren't you? He's like, yep. So he's like, go get the horses. We're one step closer to our ultimate goal. And that's when she says, as I listen to your plans, the future I imagine you'll reach may contain her goals, but not her memories. And so I'm going to contain her heart and inherit it. And so Schmidt, for a second, wavers, and we don't see, he's like, no, everything's as God intended. I like, Schmidt's like, no feelings, no feelings. My convictions have not wavered. He's like, this is exactly as God has intended. This is how nature is predicted. My feelings are of no concern. I'm like, oh, bitch, you say that. You say that, but he's like, if I waver now, I won't be able to achieve my own goals. But here's like kind of the thing. This whole episode focuses on the idea of convictions can corrupt and they come with a price. And so it's like Schmidt has to decide in this episode if his convictions alone, if he keeps to just those, then will that sabotage the entire plan? So yeah, he's like that. And the moment he started, why do these anime characters jinx everything? They're like, everything's going according to plan. Everything's fine. We have nothing to worry about. Quit trying to convince yourself and jinxing everything. It's bad magumbo. Nope. And then he's like, the mission, is it our most important task? This location, is it worthy of keeping it secret? Were these horses the only way out? Ugh. Man, damn it. And Free being so proud that he killed these damn horses. Why is it also in every anime involving horses, the horses end up having a bad rap? Every anime I've watched with horses have had horses go through shit and end up dead. Damn it. I feel like the Neverending Story was a precursor. Damn it, that sucks. I thought for a second when Free had the sword against his neck that he was going to kill himself. I thought he was like, well, I called the cops. They're coming. Bye. I thought he was going to do that, but he really didn't. Instead, he went to attack Schmidt, which props for Schmidt bringing a knife to a sword fight and holding his damn own. Schmidt is literally the definition of it's not the size, it's how you use it. Has anybody done anything with that? Has the fandom done anything with that? You should. Schmidt is the ultimate. It's not the size, it's how you use it in anime form. I swear. Good for him. I love that he just literally fought off this man with a knife. and was like, okay. Also, Schmidt, like, doing the slow, like, very Trunks-like from Dragon Ball Z, knife back into his chest with the sword. Schmidt shows he can hold his own. Also, he's like, I'm tired of you talking. Bye. And stabbing him in the throat. But before, he's like, I want to know why. Why did you betray us? He's like, he's like, why? On whose orders? Damn, Schmidt's just so freaking handsome. I usually don't like facial hair on guys at all, but that damn mustache is part of his personality, and it fits. It works for him. He's like, God and justice. So, and I like, that's when Schmidt does the, what? He's like, I've hated you people. So we find out that Free, whose name is appropriate, was someone against, he was a heretic hater, and he was basically the Judas of this series. He basically betrayed Smith because he's hated heretics this whole time, and he got, like, inside to get to this point. He's like, all this time I've hated you people. I've hated you heretics. And I like that Free's like, well, dude, you killed knights like we did, so what does that make you? You're guilty as well. And he says, it was a necessary sacrifice to pursue my convictions. I honestly think that moment there, Schmidt had been wavering the entire episode with what he should do and how he should handle all this. And he'd been wavering, being like, I don't know. What am I going to do about all this? I feel like the moment that Free said that was the turning point. Where he's like, oh crap, I could end up like you, who are dying because you held to your convictions. And that was because Free wasn't open-minded. Free was around these people the whole time, listening to all the conversations they had, listening to everything that was put out on the table. He was there for every conversation that Draka and Schmidt really had, except for that one by the grindstone in the last episode. He's been there for like 80% of the conversations they've had together. And after hearing all of that, after hearing both sides of their stories, this guy was still not convinced and still held to his beliefs, which is exactly what Yolenta was talking about. It's the idea of that corruption. Like, Free is emblematic of that. He held to this conviction about heretics, even after hearing them out. Like, Free was not open-minded, which is the irony of his name. It's like he wasn't open-minded and then ends up getting killed because he couldn't open his eyes to the idea of what they were putting out there. Or just letting them go and letting them try their things. Yeah. He's like, I will extinguish you all. I don't even think Free was contracted by anybody. I think he just was a and that's kind of the thing. He was just a vigilante person against Schmidt and Draka in the group. And that's kind of the thing. Like, you can, as much as you want to, that is the one side of humanity that's kind of sucks. That kind of sucks. No matter what you do, no matter what you try, there is always going to be that one person that you cannot reach, that is so hell-bent on their convictions that they will fight to it till the death. But what an unnecessary death. Like, Free didn't have to die. He didn't have to get killed. He's the one that tried to attack Schmidt. He's the one that sabotaged the whole thing. He wasn't contracted by anybody. He just did it because of his beliefs. And that's kind of the scary thing, is some people do stuff like this and it goes poorly for them, but it hurts others in the process too. And it's just for a lack of being open-minded. That's been my conviction since the day I was born. No, I don't think so. You're not born hating heretics. That's a learned process. I have no, what does he say? I have no doubts. And Schmidt's like, okay. I like Schmidt saying, you are awfully sloppy for someone pursuing their convictions. And he's like, why are you confessing now? We can still get out. And he's like, you don't get it. This is an act of mercy. And Schmidt's like, what? And he's like, I'm giving you time to understand your own shallowness, to experience despair, and to repent. Which is kind of funny because I don't view Schmidt as shallow. I think Schmidt does, it's the irony of Free saying this to Schmidt when Free's the one doing all the things that he's supposed to be doing. And Schmidt's like, okay. He's like, it's not too late for salvation. As a true believer, I'll hear your confession. That just makes my skin crawl. The idea that Free's like, I'm a true believer. I'm like, have you been listening to all these conversations? No, my dude. He's like, so say it. Say the church orthodoxy you've mocked all along was right. Say it to me. And I love that Schmidt's like, nope, not really. Not really at all, my friends. Not a thing. That's so crazy. Also, the idea the hilt of the sword makes it look like a cross. It literally, the hilt of the sword that Schmidt is putting through the throat. The symbolism of Schmidt taking a sword that looks like a cross and shoving it through the neck of Free so Free can't talk anymore about his righteousness is, God, it's good. Against the sunset of the sunlight fading. Oh my gosh, which is emblematic of Schmidt's dream and his energy. And then we had the idea of the cross, of them burning the crosses. And the crazy thing about it is that I don't know if Schmidt's necessarily talked to Free and them about all of his like backstory. He's expressed his convictions and why he believes this way, but we, the audience, know what led him to have those beliefs. I don't know if he's vocalized those to Draka and Free and the others, but the crazy thing is Schmidt is the way he is because of people like Free. The cycle is insane. The cycle is insane because it's literally like you have human with beliefs. Then you have beliefs challenged with violence, by the way. This is the part that's emblematic here, with violence, which then leads to destruction, which then leads to rebellion, which then leads to humans with beliefs. And it's a big old cycle. Orb on the movements of the earth. But that's really what ends up happening. You had Schmidt's family were believers. Even though Schmidt was a kid and his thought processes weren't fully formed yet. His parents were believers. They had beliefs. But then the beliefs were challenged by the people in the village. Now, if this whole with violence part was taken out, then the destruction and rebellion parts probably wouldn't have happened and we'd have like a little utopia. But humans aren't good with that. So because the village met them with violence, it led to the family's destruction, which led to Schmidt rebelling, which led to Schmidt having his own beliefs, which are then challenged by Free, which ends to this, which leads to this, which leads to this, which just creates this endless cycle. And it's annoying. But that's literally what happens in this. Also, the one guy looking kind of like Free is interesting. He's like, you can see it, can't you? This righteous cross. And the thing that's so like crazy for Free is that Free's like, look at this righteous cross. Look how righteous I am. And Schmidt's like, yeah, that's why I'm against you. Because you literally acted out with violence and destruction while claiming to be for God's everlasting love. Okay. Yep. I like how Leibowitz comes out and he's just like, oh, hey, by the way, this guy betrayed us. So there's that. Schmidt is always so calm. It's kind of insane how calm he is at all times. He's like, and that's the situation. And I like to Draka's like, am I the only one sweating and freaking out about what just happened? Everybody else is like, oh, okay, that tracks. He didn't come to the office Christmas party last year, so that was our first sign. So then they're like, okay, what do we do? The one guy says that he hid the molds and the manuscript. So we have the idea that the molds and the OG manuscript are hidden. So that's good. That means that you could come back and get them at some point. So that's fine. I don't think at this point Draka cares about the printing press unless she comes back to get it to like print out it herself. Boltso is like, our enemies are closing in. Do we abandon the printing press? And he's like, we don't have a lot of options. This place is kind of, it's like we're kind of sitting ducks. Any way we fly, they can easily go after us. So this is ideally not the greatest place to get trapped at. We could all die, worst case. And Leibowitz is like, well, there's nothing we can do. So they're like, what their solution is, those who are lucky enough as to escape can start over. I like how, again, talk about symbolism, something I love. You have the window with the damn moonlight coming through. You've got these guys over here. Draka's on the edge next to the moonlight, and then Schmidt's over here by himself. It just visually is so striking. Realistically, that's our only way to survive. It's our one and only option. Here's the thing with anything. There is never, ever just one option. There may not be a lot of options. You may not have a lot of options. Those options may not be fun. Those options may be involving sacrifice and people dying. You never only have one option. No. Mm-mm. Life is not like a game of chess. You don't ever get to checkmate. There's always an option. Here's the thing. It may end in the game ending for you, but there's always options. And so that's when Draka's like, I'm glad that Draka speaks up, that the moonlight shines on her. She's like, no, we have two options. If publishing is the goal, then I have another option. And Schmidt's like, tell me. Schmidt's like, say things. I believe in you. I love how serious he is. She's like, you can all work together to ensure I escape. Because here's the thing. She does have the manuscript in her head. So even if the manuscript is found, even if the typeface are found, as long as she gets out, she has the information. She can find somebody with the printing press and get it republished. She can write it down on a piece of paper. She can do whatever she wants. As long as Draka escapes, then the goal is still possible. That's the thing. The goal is still possible. So maybe I'm wrong about her going to Antony. And Schmidt's like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, okay, I'll explain my plan. She explains it and they are not having it. They're like, are you out of your mind? That's never going to work. Do you realize who we're about to fight? So it's the church itself. So they're like, if we fight to ensure that you escape, we're probably all going to die. And she says, well, yes, I know that. But rather than the church, I'll talk to him personally. So talking to him personally, I feel like him is Antony. Because I feel like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not Antony. Maybe it's Novak. She doesn't really even know Novak, so I don't think that's the case. She knows Antony, though, because I feel like she knew that Antony wanted to talk to her and wanted her brought back. Here's my thing. When she confronted Antony, by all intents and purposes, could have just killed her right then and there. But he didn't. He didn't because he was curious about what she knew. And now she has more of a bargaining chip to put in front of him. And I feel like if she's like, oh, if we can monetize this, maybe you'll be a part of it, right? I don't know. I like her say, I want to see what's going to happen with them. If we steal a horse, I can get there in a few hours. And she's like, nothing is impossible. Especially when it comes to people's hearts. I like this, like Schmidt looks down and Leibowitz looks up when she says when it comes to people's hearts. Schmidt looking down is like, nothing is impossible when it comes to people's hearts. Schmidt's like, I feel like there's such a conflict in him that he's like thinking of his family. He's thinking of the village. He's thinking of everything that's happened to him that's hardened his own convictions. But then he's thinking of how Draka has changed over the course of him knowing her and how her convictions have shifted and how she's decided to latch onto Yolenta and it's kind of changed his perspective. And so there's just all this. I love this series because all this is happening under the surface. And they don't come out and tell you it's happening, but you can see it on the screen. You can see it happening. And Leibowitz is like, what? I love it. Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't believe in God. And I like she kind of uses it. She's like, you can all reject what I think, but she's like, I'm able to look at it from a perspective you all can't. She's like, you all can get clouded by your beliefs. I'm coming at it from an objective outside perspective. So I think my ideas are valuable. And so then she's like, the times are changing. They have to change. And I can take advantage of it. And Schmidt's like, well, you're not wrong. She's like, I can convince him. I feel like she's also talking about Antony referring to the fact that the church is falling and failing and that they need to evolve if they're going to stay in power. And at the end of the day, Draka knows exactly the type of person Antony is because she was that person. She, from what Yolenta has told her, has become self-aware that she's like, oh God, I was like Antony. I was doing everything in my power to stay in a position of being able to survive. And she probably understands that Antony wants the church to survive because that means he survives. So she has kind of a bargaining chip in all of this. And Smith's like, he's like, you do know what you're asking of us. They're like, if we work together, then we can ensure one or two escape. One or two. The moment they said one or two, I was like, Schmidt and Draka? Schmidt and Draka? Maybe. Don't get my hopes up, show. Don't get my hopes up. But in return, we're all going to die. And I'm like, I think what kind of helps is they all knew going into this that there was a chance of that happening anyway. The moment that they said, we're sitting ducks and we possibly could die, it's like, yeah, you all probably are going to. So them risking it for her is not, I mean, it could lead to the same result it was going to lead at anyway. But the book will be published. Isn't that the goal of the organization? I like that she's challenging them. She's like, you guys said you were an organization that weren't into emotions, so why is this an issue? It's for the good of the cause. A chance a few can escape or one of your choosing. Yeah. Uh-huh. I like that she's like, basically, if we all run, yeah, maybe a couple people will get out. But it may not be me, which means that the people that get out may be able to still do absolutely nothing to publish the book. Or you can help me escape and I will get the book published. And isn't that the overall goal? And Schmidt's like, well, I disagree with this. He's like, even if we helped you escape, I doubt you'll convince anyone. I do like that Schmidt sticks to his convictions, where in this sense, he's like, you know, I'm glad you think logically about this, but he's like, humanity, I like that Schmidt adds in being like, yes, logically and objectively, what you're saying is true, but humans, we also just saw Free, who had been around us this whole time and should have been convinced that we weren't bad people, still try to kill us all because he still thinks we're bad people despite everything he's learned about us. So sure, you could go to Antony, but Antony may not listen to you at all, or he may use you. He may not give a shit. So he's like, I don't know if you'll convince anybody. The chances of success are too slim. That said, even if a few of us besides you were to get away, the chances of obtaining another printing press, on top of that, achieving publication and distribution, are still very low. So he's like, yeah, he's like, basically we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't. But I like that Schmidt's like, let's not pretend like your method is going to be the savior to us. It probably won't work, but we're kind of in a tight corner either way. And so I honestly feel like Schmidt doing that helped to sway the guys around him, because if Schmidt was like, yes, let's put our faith in Draka and her plan, then I think there would have always been that doubt from the crew of being like, well, we're following this girl that we barely know with this plan we don't think is going to work. So I think Schmidt kind of, because Schmidt has established himself among those men as being this objective viewpoint that covers all bases, even though we, the audience, know that he kind of doesn't, but they kind of think he does. I think that it's important that he said what he said, because that shows to them, like, because Schmidt is someone they trust and he's their captain. He's like, look, your plan probably isn't going to work, but our plan isn't probably either. So Schmidt is in a way saying, what have we got to lose, without saying that, you know, what'll it be? And then she's like, well, actually, I know a good way to break deadlocks like this. She's like, we're going to flip a coin. And if it's heads, we run. If it's tails, we'll ask God. I liked, again, you have Leibowitz and him on either side. Heads, they run. Tails, you help me escape. Were they the same? Was it the same coin on both sides? Was it the same on both sides? No, there was a head on that side. Okay. But again, I feel like there's a part of me that wonders if Schmidt kind of looked at this gesture and was like, this isn't asking God. You're still flipping a coin. You're the person flipping the coin. The human is flipping the coin, which is causing the motion, which is creating the coin to move, and then it's falling. I feel like in that moment, Draka, who doesn't believe in God, was making a metaphor, being like, oh, we'll just, it wasn't condescending and meant to be that way, but she is kind of saying like, sure, we'll just get God involved. And I feel like by the end, Schmidt's like, no, what you just did was you making that choice. You flipped a coin, but you were the one that flipped it. The coin didn't fall out of the sky given by God. You flipped the coin. It's your coin. So it's your action. God had nothing to do with that. And he's like, so I'm going to intervene and say, no, this is what we're going to do. And I love that because it's so true. I'm like, sometimes I feel like people, when they don't want to take responsibility for things, they'll be like, well, it was just God doing his thing. And I'm like, but no, that was just you not taking accountability. Or it was just you not taking responsibility or doing the thing. That you're blaming it on something that was actually your fault. And then Schmidt's like, are you okay with this? And she's like, yeah. And so she flips it and it's heads. And the one thing that's crazy is that everyone in the room, there's no sigh of relief. There's no smile. There's no, okay, we're doing. It was all like, Like, that in itself is telling that she was like, fine, we'll leave it. She's like, you guys are the ones that have the spiritual belief. We'll leave it up to God. And then when it went a certain way that they wanted, you could tell they were all kind of like hesitant about it, which to me means that they actually were kind of getting on board with her idea. They just didn't want to admit it, right? They just didn't want to admit it. And so she's like, okay, let's go. And then as they start to move out, you can tell everybody's kind of like, well, we kind of were getting a little riled up to protect you. And as they go, I love that Schmidt, he's like, no. He takes the coin and he flips it to tails. And then I love the light. He's like, you run and we will protect you. The light shining in that moment. The time where Schmidt decides, he's like, nope, we're gonna he's letting his conviction go and he's getting human involvement. If that's not the most romantic thing in this show outside of Bodini and Aksha so far, I don't know what is. I mean, everything Bodini and Aksha did was romantic as hell, but this is, yes. He's like, no, we're going to actually like go with the goal. I kind of love this because in a sense, if you think about it, Draka's plan was keeping it with the goals of the organization, was keeping it with Yolenda's heart and mind, everything. And the stubbornness of them refuting that, Schmidt kind of is thinking, well, yeah, hell, this is being human. So, you know what? If we're all being human in our final moments, why not? He's like, we'll protect you. Damn. And nobody's objecting. He's like, do you hear that? And they're like, is that a suggestion? I like that nobody's arguing. They're all like, okay, is this a suggestion? And Schmidt is like, no, it's an order. And he's like, okay, understood. I like that they're like, well, there was a chance we're going to die anyway, so why not go out this way? And honestly, I feel like all of them know for Schmidt to make a decision like this is going against his own convictions for the betterment of the world. So they're like, well, hey, if you're able to do that, Schmidt, who are we? Who are we to go against it, you know? So I'm glad I had 2 cups of tea. It's so worth it. But yeah. Oh my God. So I was wondering when they were going to end this episode because I thought, oh my God, they're going to end it before anything goes down. But this has honestly got me so damn hyped for episode 22. So damn hyped. So damn hyped. Yes. Okay. All right. I want to apologize because Luminist over on Discord, they were talking about these episodes and giving like their impression of them. And I was like, I don't want no impressions because I'm afraid of getting overhyped before we get into the episodes. And I don't want that to have like a gloomy veil over my reactions, because it happened with another series this year on my channel, and the hype ruined the show. I'm glad that's not happened with this, but we only have 4 episodes left, which is insane. This feels like the climax. The climax is, how is Draka going to get out with the manuscript, or with the knowledge of the manuscript? Is she going to go to Antony? Is Antony even going to accept anything that she says? Or is he just going to be like, no? And then how are we ending this? Because next episode is clearly going to be the climax. Or hell, they could just instantly go to the end of the series and we could be like, we never find out. I hope that doesn't happen. But with this series, you just don't know. You just don't know. So anyway, I have talked for nearly an hour about this episode, which rightfully so. I feel like after this episode, we're not going to get any more Schmidt and Draka monologues. And they're my favorite. I love them. So I cannot wait to hear your thoughts about this episode and these monologues down below. Again, Orb on the Movements of the Earth, restoring my faith in humanity, one episode at a time. So anyway, I'm so excited. I hope you all are as well. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe and take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 22 of Orb on the Movements of the Earth. And I'll see you all then. Bye.